Hey friends, Andy here with another episode of the podcast. And today I have Jesse Eckel. And now Jesse has this crazy story. Jesse went from unemployed to a millionaire in 1.5 years, a year and a half. And how did he do that? Well, one of my favorite things about Jesse is all about taking massive action, just getting up off your butt and doing something. And he did that in spades. He worked his butt off doing Facebook ads, options, trading, flipping things on Facebook Marketplace, affiliate marketing, launching a brand, land flipping, postal mail marketing, coaching, crypto investing, Google ads, website design, AI bot investing, and more. And while a lot of that stuff did not work out, some of it did. And that is kind of how he rode the wave of success to achieve millionaire status. And Jesse is not only a doer of all the things, he's also a fellow YouTuber. And because he's done this litany of wild things, he's also a fellow Renaissance man and friend. So, Jesse, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I was actually a little bit shocked there when you read out that list. I was like, whoa, he did his research.
It's a wild list, my friend. I guess first question is what excites, why do you want to try like a million things? What gets in your head to get you going to start doing all those things?
So, well, when I first started my journey, I had like a lot of theories about how I could succeed trying to get to a million. I was desperate to succeed because I genuinely, it was a challenge, but it was a challenge. The challenge was just meant to motivate me because I genuinely needed the money. Like I had maybe 2 months worth of savings, and then I literally had no money left. And you used to do weddings, so you understand this. As a wedding videographer, you essentially save up a bunch of funds throughout the year. You have to cover kind of the winter season. You have like a reverse summer as a wedding videographer. You have to cover that season and make it until the next wedding season starts and you start getting paying clients. And so I had built up a savings because of that. And you have a little bit of a buffer. And that's what allowed me to kind of survive as long as I did. But as soon as that savings, started dwindling, that's kind of what motivated me to start trying to figure out what to do. And as I approached the end of the line there, I really need to figure out something to do. And so that's what the 1 to 1 million journey started from. And my idea was essentially massive action. You mentioned that earlier, that just like by pure probability, if you try a lot of things, my hope was that like one of them would stick. And that like it would, if I could just do them rapidly and try them all at the same time as fast as possible, one of them would end up kind of like yielding some sort of result. And I didn't know if that would work or not. It was like based off sales principles from like sales books I'd read, where it's like, if you want to get a client, you need to call 100 clients a day. And, maybe all 99 say no, but maybe you get one person that's interested. And so it was kind of like that same principle. And it was just my theory that I went with and tried. So it's not like it necessarily excited me or like I was like, oh, I want to try a lot of things. I would rather focus on one thing. I just didn't know what would work and had to go all out.
Straight up shotgun approach. I love it.
Yep.
So tell me about the background between, so I first found your channel, it was in the midst of this, 0 to a million or $1 to a million idea. Where did that come from? Why did you decide on that idea?
So early when I was trying to kind of figure out what to do for income, I was trying things and nothing was working. This is before I started 1 to 1 million. So before 1 to 1 million happened, I was like, maybe I'll do like a digital. My idea was like, I would do like a digital sort of marketing agency. So because I filmed videos, instead of doing like a making commercials, I was like, I will do a marketing agency so I can make more money. And I'll also have the ability to film and like do photos on my own. So like in my head, this was like this really great idea. I never could get any clients. I called it Hammer Forge Creative. And I never could get any clients or anything like that. And so I started just trying to learn as much as I could while I was biding my time. Like I was like doing things, but I didn't really know what to do. But I was like, well, I can at least be like a sponge and absorb and learn. And then I'll be more capable once I figure out what I'm going to do. And as I was learning, I had a friend who was like really successful on TikTok. And by really successful, I mean, he had gotten 5,000 subscriber or followers. And I was like, dude, that's insane. Cause at the time, like I had like 500 was like the max and had it on like Instagram, and it's just all friends and family. And so I was like, this guy, like he's famous on TikTok. And I was like, I wonder if I could do that. Like, cause if he could do it, I could do it too. So I started just posting videos about what I was learning. Again, kind of biding my time. I didn't know what to do or what was going to work, but I knew it just kind of made me feel good, like feel like I was doing something, right? I wasn't making money, but I was doing something that maybe could be something. Um, and so as I was making more and more content, I started to get some traction, right? And I wanted to kind of summarize my journey. I wanted to motivate myself, and I wanted to like kind of synergize everything into one little box. And so that's where I came up with this idea of like 1 to 1 million. I actually got it from, there was this girl on TikTok that did like paperclip to a house. Um, I forget her name, but she's like really popular on TikTok. And I was like, oh, I want to do something like that. And so it was 1 to 1 million. So $1 to $1 million. Except I didn't, it wasn't like just using some people are so confused. It wasn't using the $1 million. It was just like, I started with $1 investment capital and doing side hustles or literally whatever I could. I don't know. But whatever would make money, I was going to try to make $1 million. And it was like this big, ambitious goal to get me motivated to go out there and do something. I didn't actually think, like when I first started, I didn't actually think I could make $1 million. That was insane to me. But I'd read a book by Grant Cardone called, oh my gosh, how am I blanking on the name? Well, I'm blanking on the name. It'll come back to me. But I read this book by Grant Cardone where he talked about how you want big, ambitious goals. You want to go after, big goals, because going after a little goal is to sum up the book is basically like shoot for the moon and you land among the stars. But in
The
a book
10x
form,
rule?
kind of yells at you. What was it?
Is it
Yeah,
the
the
10x
10x rule.
rule?
The
Okay.
10x rule. It's literally one of my favorite books. I don't know how I blanked on it. So I came up with the 10x vision. I'd made 6 figures before doing weddings. So I went 10x to $1 million. I was going to make $1 million. And so yeah, that's how I came up with the concept of it. Is really just a tool to motivate myself to go do something, because I was like deathly afraid that I was going to fail. I was going to have to go get like a job. I didn't have really a resume as a self-employed person, so I didn't know how good of a job I was going to get. And I felt like I was just going to go backwards in life. And I'd worked so hard building my business that genuinely terrified me. I'm sure you really understand this. It genuinely terrified me that I put so much work into my business, and then this idea that because of all the COVID lockdowns, I was going to go backwards in life and have to start over and go get a job like a normal person, and kind of all this was for nothing. And so I was really motivated to not let that happen. And yeah.
It's so there's two things I want to comment on about what you just said. One, isn't it amazing how we, like human brain, how we reframe things? So you're talking about your friend who has this massive, huge TikTok audience of 5,000 followers. And I would agree, when I was first starting out, I'd meet somebody who has 10,000 followers on Twitter or something, and be like, wow, you're like a big shot. And now you look back, you're like, maybe we're all kind of still small fries in the big scheme of things. And, you reframe. Same with like, oh, I'll never make $1 million. It's like, now that we've done that, it's like, well, that was at one point a big goal and it's good to chase, but you eventually reframe these things and realize how possible they are, more doable they are. Which is funny. But two, the other thing you said that is I can relate to so much is the idea of just being, terrified that, this is going to fail or not work out. Like I have some 9 to 5 background, but when COVID hit and the pandemic hit and stuff, my small business, vanished overnight basically. And so I actually found myself, as I was starting this YouTube channel, also going on Indeed.com and looking at jobs and stuff, and just wincing and grimacing the entire time, because like, I don't want to go work at a 9 to 5 job again or do this. Like, so yeah, I 100% I feel that feeling for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'd spent years building up my wedding business, and I loved being an entrepreneur. I loved the freedom that gave me, even though it's increased workload. Like like the work I put in had like a direct output. And so a job isn't necessarily the same. in that. Like you could put in more work, but it's not like you're necessarily always going to get rewarded for that extra work.
Yep.
I look through Indeed too, sometimes, and was just like, do I do this? Do I not? Yeah, it was terrifying. And that might sound silly to say terrifying, but I don't know why, but it's like the idea of putting in, all these years worth of work, all this years worth of investment. And it's like part of, especially with kids, like part of it's like, there would be times where I'd miss soccer games. I'd miss weekends because filming weddings, right? Birthday party, not my own kids' birthday parties, but like them going to friends' birthday parties and things like that. And you miss it, but you're like, well, I'm building something though. I'm building something that's going to mean something. And eventually I won't have to miss these things. And then boom, it's all wiped out. And you're like, did I sacrifice all that for nothing? And I think that's really where the terrifying part comes from.
Yep. So did you ever in your life do the 9 to 5 or normal job thing?
Yeah. So my first job was at Rite Aid. So I was a cashier.
Mm-hmm.
And then I quit that and got a job at an after school program. So I like, it was basically played ping pong all day, did a bunch of fun games. We did zombie tag and all these cool things.
I think that makes you a professional ping pong player.
I'm not very good anymore, but back then when I played every day, I was like, we would have competitions and stuff. It was really, really fun. I loved that. This was maybe my favorite job ever. Then after that, I got married and I couldn't do that because it was only part-time after school. And I got a job doing technical support at a company. So that was my first like office job and I hated it. Absolutely hated that. And then my dad passed away. And then he left me this massive inheritance at the time to me of $100,000. This was like a decade ago. And I was an idiot. I didn't understand money or finance or anything. I quit my job and said, I'm gonna trade puts and options. And I tried to trade puts and options. I lost like 30 grand in like 9 minutes and was like, okay, at that time, that was like, I made $24,000 a year at my job. So losing 30 grand in 9 minutes was the most insane, horrible thing. I was so stupid. And within like a year and a half, I had lost all that money. I like totally gotten rid of all that money, being dumb and not knowing how to be financially literate, responsible. And so I ended up getting a job in like Stockton. It's like a city 2 hours away. I had to drive 5 hours a day round trip to get to to go to work. And that I got burnt out from that really quick. Convinced them to let me work from home, but I was like super lazy and I ended up getting fired because I wasn't doing like quality work. I basically wasn't doing my job. I was just dumb. And then that was kind of like the wake up call, like, wow, I need to change kind of the person I am. And so I started just like a nationwide job search, doing video work. Ended up getting a job doing video work in Texas, out in Fort Worth. Did that as well as worked doing some weddings on the side, which there's like a whole story to that. And then that's what launched my wedding business. And then from there on out, I just filmed weddings, and I spent, let's see, from 2014 I did it part-time, 2015 I went full-time, and I did it all the way to 2020 when COVID happened.
Yeah, I forgot. We've chatted before, and I forgot there are some parallels here because I also did the brief stint in the 9 to 5 or normal job world before doing the entrepreneurship thing full time. I was in entrepreneurship earlier in life, but then kind of ventured over to this. But I also went full time with my wedding business in 2014. So right around the same time that you did, and also my first job out of college paid me just under $24,000 per year. So I can definitely feel what that was like, So, humble beginnings.
I feel like a baller. I was making like, I think it was like $12 an hour. And I was like, man, this is not minimum wage anymore. And I thought it was amazing. My aspiration in life at the time was to make $40,000 at one point in my life. Cause that to me was like, you made it in life if you made $40,000 a year. And so the fact that it was 24,000 and I was so young, I was like, man, I'm really on my way. That was my mindset back then.
Yeah, my 24,000 per year job, I spun that into my second job at a startup company, which at the time was making like 50,000. I was like, and I have arrived. Hello, it is me. And looking back, I'm like, okay, maybe change my perspective a little bit. But it's also interesting what you said about, I forgot about that. I knew that about you with the inheritance and, losing it basically through that. It's like it proves. It's like why lottery people, they get this big payout, but they don't have the skills built in already. So it doesn't, like, people are convinced that they just were to get this big chunk of money to fix all their problems. But if
Yeah,
you don't have those foundations and stuff, it doesn't matter how much you receive if you don't know how to utilize it.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't and I lost it all. So,
Yeah, but now you have that as part of this. I mean, I think it's an incredible part of your story that you have that as the background. You have that experience. I think we all need those major, disasters or fails in life to kind of go in a successful direction forward. So I'd love to talk more about like that next section of the journey. Like when you first started doing like the video stuff on your own, was it love at first sight when it came to entrepreneurship? Did it make sense? Did life make sense all of a sudden?
yes. So I mean, obviously loved making videos a lot. During that like year and a half when I was like trying to figure out what to do with my inheritance and just blowing it, I spent most of it on like video gear and different things. I was trying to start a YouTube channel back then, and I guess I wouldn't say most of it. I spent most of it on that options trade. That was dumb. And then I bought like a keyboard and I guess on rent and food, and because I didn't have a job. And so anyway, I was like basically this bum trying to make YouTube videos. So I loved making videos, and I knew I wanted to do something along those lines, and I knew I wanted to be a YouTuber. Just wasn't the right time, I guess. And then when I started my wedding business, yeah, I loved it. I loved working for myself. I love creating things and building things and optimizing things and making things more efficient and like branding things. For me, that was just absolutely the funnest thing on the planet. And when I started out doing weddings, I was not that great. But by the end of doing weddings, I'd gotten into like the luxury niche. I was doing big like $1 million weddings in the Bay Area. Like it was so fun. And it was cool to look back and be like, I built this from like a small business, doing like basically bottom rung weddings for the cheapest cost to like a luxury business where I was doing weddings for like $6,000 to $10,000 per wedding, which was like my dream. That was then robbed from me after lockdowns, which were pretty intense, especially in California.
Yeah, it's funny. I have the similar story. My first wedding, which actually I haven't actually ever talked about most of the stuff on my channel or publicly, but I actually am doing a video on this soon since I now have retired the business. Funny enough, but yeah, I started my first wedding free. Second wedding, just begging someone to pay me like $1,000 to do their entire wedding day, and then slowly iterating until I got to the higher end of the market towards the end of my career. It's funny how there's that's like the path that a lot of people will take if they're going to go into this business. So, do you think like with entrepreneurship, like obviously we both enjoyed a lot. There's a lot of reasons why we love it. It's well suited for us. But do you think can anyone be an entrepreneur? Can anybody do this?
I think anyone could do it. I do think that you have an advantage when you enjoy creating things. And I've definitely met people that seem to enjoy kind of being more like guided on what to do. And I don't know if, well, because I am me. I don't know if that's like something that they could change or not, or would want to. But I know some people like ideally wouldn't be maybe necessarily happy or like as pumped up doing it. Um, but I guess you really never know until you do it, right? It is really fun working for yourself. And I think on a certain level, for like any person, there is something about like being rewarded for your actions that like I think is very like just people like that, right? I think we're almost like meant to be like that, right? Like think about back in the day, if you're a good farmer, you got crops and you ate. And if you're a bad farmer, you didn't. And I think in that same way, uh, you know, it's really fun to build a business where if you're good at it, you eat, and if you're not good at it, you got to go get a job. And so, but yeah, I think anyone could do it if they set their mind to it. Certainly, like I was the dumbest person on the planet. So if I could start a business, then anyone could, but you got to be kind of good at something. And I think what keeps most people back is like the overwhelmingness of it. A lot of people, I mean, they like to like get their business name, get their business cards. They want to have like every little duck in a row before they even figure out if their business can make money. And I was like the opposite. I was like, let me go just try this and see if I can make money at it. And then I'll get all my little ducks in a row. I'll figure out what my business name is. I'll make a website and stuff, but I'll do that, way after I've, figured out if I enjoy this and if I can make money with it.
I think so many people give up on it because they do what you just said. They have to get the website, they have to get the business card, the perfect name. They spend so long thinking about the name and all these details, and they don't realize none of it matters if you can't actually make a successful business. And then they eventually launch their business. Most people don't actually even get to the stage of launching their business. They get lost in the mire of decisions before. But if they do launch it, a big percentage, it doesn't work out. And then they go, all right, not for me. Whereas, yeah, the other alternative is, I think, better.
I think it's even dangerous to go that route because it's almost like the gambler's addiction. What they'll do is they'll come up with a name and then they'll order probably their business cards. And now they've spent like $300, $200. And then they're like, well, I got to keep going now. So then they'll get the website and that maybe cost them 500,000 bucks. And then like some people they'll build a whole restaurant and all this stuff without ever testing their idea first. And then like, sooner they're now $10,000, $20,000 in the hole, and they just found out that like through real life experience that their business idea in the first place was a bad idea. And so I think that route is really dangerous, especially having tried so many ideas. Like just go try it first, see if people are willing to pay for it, and then if you can build some income, you can even use the income you're making to go do those things. And that way you're not going out of pocket. I get there's some things you kind of have to go out of pocket, but even those you can prove the ideas first. If it's a restaurant, go make the food and see if people actually enjoy it. Go find people that are willing to tell you the truth, and see if they're enjoy it. Start with like a really small cart or cater an event or something, and build your way out from there.
Yeah, I think most people would be surprised to learn exactly how small scale you can start something and then bootstrap the rest of the way if it starts working. But it's I don't know. There's a lot. There's so much hustle culture and entrepreneurship is sexy and fancy things happening. Like there's all this stuff online that tells you got to do all this stuff beforehand, and really it's just like try some stuff and then chase the thing that works, and that's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, you don't got to do anything. I mean, like you could literally just make up something. And some of the things that I did as side hustles, I literally made them up.
Mhm.
And I was just like, yeah, somebody might pay for this, solves a problem, and they'd make money. It'd make money. But too many people are like, should I do should I do drop shipping or Amazon FBA or investing? Which one should I do? And it's like they limit themselves to like the three most popular overcrowded options on the planet. And they don't realize that there's like literally millions of options to choose from. And probably the best ones aren't specifically like, drop shipping or Amazon FBA or, some of those more popular side hustles.
See, I think that if there's something oversaturated, that means it works. So you can still make it work. But I think something key that you said there, which is something I recognize in a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of self-starters, and I definitely see in you, is that when you try something, you also are honest and self-aware with yourself, and that you're constantly evaluating the like what you're doing, and you're honest with yourself. If it's not working out, you iterate, you pivot, you are flexible. And some people, they just stick to the same thing, hoping for different results, even though they're changing nothing about the input. So yeah, maybe it's good to not jump into the most saturated thing in the entire world at first. But even then, you can make it work. But you have to have that other factor that I was just talking about. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can make those things work. And that's a really good point. Like the other side of the oversaturated argument is that like if you're excellent at something, you can rise to the top of that oversaturated market and really control market share and make a lot of money. Same thing with like when I was doing weddings, people are like, yeah, it's already super crowded. And I'm like, and they're like, I can only charge $1,000 because there's too many wedding videographers. And I was like, well, that's just not true because I'm charging $6,000. You just have to be excellent at what you do. And so I agree with that. But I do think that the people that made the most money with Amazon FBA are the ones that found it early when nobody was talking about it. So I also think there's low hanging fruit out there if you're somebody who's looking for like something easy. there's always going to be low hanging fruit out there, but nobody's going to be like shouting it from the rooftops. You have to go find it. And if you get really
Mhm.
good at identifying how businesses work and how to build a business, and like what the general idea of a business is, like, go find a problem, solve that problem, and you can get paid, right? And the bigger the problem you solve, the more money you can make. That general concept helped me like a ridiculous amount when I was doing my side hustles. And I think it'll help anyone like I figure out ways to make money in any environment that people aren't talking about.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, especially like things like Amazon FBA or drop shipping stores. Yeah, getting being someone who's on in the early stages of that is helpful, or being somebody who sells courses on how to do it, or
Yeah.
who, without actual having massive success, makes a YouTube channel. So be careful who you listen to with some of those things that they actually have results and stuff. So on that next topic, like, so talking about this entrepreneurship, portion of your journey, what do you do now? Like, how do you make money now?
It's a really good question. So, uh, basically, I made a lot of money crypto investing.
Mhm.
And during like the bull run, I was making tons of money. I had nodes and all this stuff. Obviously,
No wrong
none of that stuff
answers.
makes money. Yeah.
Yeah.
But currently, I don't make a ton of money. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that, like, especially in investing, if you're making money investing, you almost kind of feel like you always have to have some sort of like passive income coming in. But I think there's something to be said about like patience and just like waiting. And so for investing, especially, it's a big waiting period. Like, I have some things that do make me money, but I feel like in all the experiments that I've been running, I've probably lost more money than I've made. During the bull run, I definitely made way more money than I lost, and I hung on to a substantial amount of that money. And what I believe through smart moves that I learned from last time that I didn't do, that I did do this time. So 2017 bull run, screwed up a lot of things. This bull run, I made the right choices, got out at the right time, stopped messing with risky stuff. But even like with my YouTube channel, I do all these like experiments. And just through the nature of like doing these experiments, early on, I was putting way too much of a position size. And so some of these experiments ended up being losses. But I've kind of dialed into the ones that are working well, and my experiments position sizes have gone down substantially, so that's not the case. So I make a little bit from those things. I've started doing affiliate links. I'd never done that before in my journey. And the general idea was, like, when I was going to a million, I wanted to look back and be able to say, like, I didn't get to a million because I did affiliate links. I didn't get to a million because I sold a course or I sold some NFT collection. I got to $1 million doing something that anyone could do, which, by the way, is also, I think, kind of dumb, because like it's more like a perception thing. Because honestly, I started with no social media following either. So, anyone could do that. If I could do it, anyone could do it. I think I had an innate advantage because I was in the video realm and I'm good at, videos. But I learned that. On my own too. So I think anyone, if I could build the social media following, anyone could build a social media following. It's not like I started with a massive social media following. So I think that could have been fair game if I'd have been like, I did a course and made it to 1 million. But I just knew so many people would complain about it. And I knew it would kind of like rob people of like being inspired by it. And so I never went down that route back then. But now that I've made it to 1 million, I am doing, like, I'm playing around with affiliate links. It's super fun. I am starting to add it more and more because I'm starting to see like the benefits of it, and like how they work and different things like that. So I make a little bit of money from affiliate links. I've probably gotten up to maybe like $1,000 a month, which I know if I'd have done these things during the bull market, I'd be up to like 30 grand a month. I talk to other creators and I know how much money they make, and they made it all during the bull run. But those signups are still going, right? I make from YouTube not very much. At the height, I was making about 17 grand a month, which was insane. The craziest thing
And
I've ever
just
experienced in my life.
AdSense.
Just AdSense. I never
That's
did any
awesome.
sponsored videos either. So,
Hmm.
again, kind of the same. Well, I was kind of, I didn't know. Like, for one, I didn't want to do it as part of my 1 to 1 million journey, but like, I got so many like weird NFT projects and different things. And I was like, I just didn't know, like, legally what I was to do or anything. Now I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of that. But I still haven't decided. I feel like once you kind of start going down, well, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just weird about that. I'm a little bit paranoid about that, so I never went that route. Um, so yeah, that was just AdSense. 17 grand a month, just AdSense. Incredible. Nowadays, though, it's like way less. I mean, I make around $750 to $800 a month on AdSense now. So really nothing. And then on TikTok, it's like I don't make barely anything off TikTok either. But we all know TikTok doesn't pull in a lot. Outside of that, I got my planners. I don't make a ton off of those. Maybe like $30 every other month. I do have Obsidian. So Obsidian, I had not made any money off of that. I'm pulling up. I actually have a list. I hadn't made any money off of that for the first year. So I actually didn't take any money because I wanted to kind of like build up. Because as I started like adding people, I wanted to make sure that like there was money to like continue to pay them. But I just took my first paycheck from that last month, and that was $5,000. So I make $5,000 from that. I make $1,000 from affiliate, make 750 to 800 from YouTube, but that's going up right now. So that's kind of cool. That's it was going down for a long time as the market was just, but now it's starting to go up a little bit. So I have this bot that I run trading, and I put in like $86,000 to trade. Well, I put in more. I put in like 90,000, but then I accidentally took out 4,000 without knowing. It's kind of complicated, but it like sets aside stablecoins. So now it's 86,000. I make about $2,000 a month from that though, which is pretty cool. And that's really it. I don't have any other income sources. I have a lot of money that is sitting in Ethereum or sitting in stablecoins or different things I'm testing. And I'm waiting for the next bull market to redeploy that capital with the goal of going from where I'm at right now to $50 million. And it's not that I specifically want $50 million or like feel like I need $50 million as much as I do want a big goal. Like I feel like I thrive on like big ambitious goals, and I feel like I thrive going after things that I think are impossible. And so 50 million to me seems like insane. Like there's no way I could do that. And the journey of getting there is what I enjoy. I don't really need, I could probably stop working right now and not have to work for the next couple decades, I guess. So I don't really need to work, but I just love it. It's, do you know who David Goggins is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. He talks
Hardcore
about
man.
that too. Yes. He talks about how he just loves pushing himself for the sake of pushing himself. And I fully related to that. That was like, that's what I love. And so I'm pushing myself to a $50 million goal just for the sake of pushing myself. And so I kind of everything I do is planning towards that and figuring out how I'm going to get there. So,
Man, so a lot to unpack there. Love it. I will add commentary in that all of what you just said is one of the things I love about what we do. You have like all of these weird income sources. I just like this mismatched nature of it and how some of them surprise you some months, and you can like turn the dial here and get more results here, turn it here into the next month. And it's just, I don't know. I like spice in life. I like variety. I'm too much ADD to do like one income source that's guaranteed, every month. I like the variety and fun of it. I also want to say, just as my little fun push to you, and I totally respect the no sponsor thing, but you should consider it. But maybe just things that are companies unrelated at all to crypto or investing or whatever.
So I've really kind of dialed in, I think, what I'm comfortable with, and which it would be, I think I'd be okay with crypto companies, but it'd be like, hey, sponsored by like Aave, crypto borrowing and lending platform, sponsored by this crypto product or service, not like, hey, come check out this token or
Yes.
come invest in this NFT. And I think that's where I've kind of settled. And I think I probably would be interested in doing something like that. I just been so busy. It's not like I haven't chased down those opportunities. And I get like a bunch of like people that reach out to me on Twitter. They're like, hey, we want you to promote things. But it's like, I bet there's some good ones in there, but like 90% of them are like garbage.
Yep.
And so I just never take the time to go sort through them. And it's not like I need money. And so my goal is like, I know I can make a lot of money doing that stuff. My goal is specifically, well, I guess that's kind of silly. It is to build up income streams right now, and then to take that money and then invest it during the bear market. So, but I guess maybe I've been focusing over the last couple months, the last 6 months, on mostly like maintaining the wealth that I had built and trying to like not let that degrade.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've kind of gotten constant like things falling apart. Like every couple months, there's something bad happens. So every time I get my ducks in a row, it's like the whole ship goes under again. I'm like, oh, I gotta save the ducks and keep them afloat. And so, yeah, I guess I've been focusing a lot on investing and keeping up with that. That I kind of have not really paid attention to maybe other opportunities like sponsors. So maybe in the next couple months, I'll pay more attention to that.
Yeah, I will echo. Yeah, I said yes to a handful of tokens or coins or projects, in the last bull run that of all the ones that they were higher up on the echelons of things that I was like, oh, excited about it. But even that I regret and won't be doing, going forward. And I've kind of made my peace with that. But, like I just said yes to a sponsorship that's coming soon with a bank. Has to be my favorite business bank account. And they want to sponsor some videos. FDIC insured. Like I feel very good about it. It's something I already use and love. It's a real company with consumer protection. So I'm like, I feel good about that type of sponsorship, but I won't be doing any of the other stuff ever
That's
again.
how you do it. Pick something you love and pick something that's you can have integrity about and just feel comfortable with.
Yeah. So, and the last thing about what what you're just talking through, this bot. Have you talked about this bot publicly?
Yeah, I talk about it on YouTube. So it's been going for about 5 months now. So month one, it did incredible. It was amazing, and I thought I was really onto something. Month two, it didn't do as good. Month three was kind of a mix, and then month 4 and 5, which is kind of shocking because we've had FTX and all this stuff. It's back to doing incredible, and so now that it's kind of like endured some storms, and I have like a little bit of longer back testing history of like actually testing it, I'm getting pretty stoked on it because it is working. It's all based on volatility. So it's buying based on volatility. So the more volatile the market is, the better it does. It's not really the bot specifically that's the amazing part of it. It's really like the settings and the strategy I'm using, which is kind of like just my refined. There's a lot to it. There's a lot kind of like backing it because I'm looking for low risk right now. I genuinely believe the next bull run is going to be insane. I think there's going to be so much money to be made. And so my only goal is preserving the wealth that I have. Now, even in retrospect, I feel like I could have done a lot better. I just see, but at the same time, like, man, I was also incredibly unlucky. Okay. I did do smart moves. I just, man, it's like shadow punches. Like I do something smart and then it's like the whole floor falls under. For example, right at the start, like way before the market started crashing, okay? I was smart. And you know what I did? I took all of my money, like 80% of my money, and I stuck it into stable coins. And I was like, boom. The stable coin was UST though. So that was the problem. And
Yep.
so, but I was then smart. Okay. So like I stuck in UST. So you can see like that's generally a smart move. You just chose a smart, you just didn't do like, I mean, at the time, nobody knew, right? Like people like to say like, oh, I knew. But at the time, genuinely 99% of the market was like, that's a safe stable coin. I know a lot more about stable coins now, by the way. Then it falls, and then like I'm talking to like I was talking to Max Mayer. I was talking to him because he had a bunch in there too, and I was like, man, I'm gonna sell, and it was like at 92 cents, 93 cents, and he's like, man, I'm gonna wait a little bit longer, and I was like, I don't know, I just 10% dip that sucks, but 100% dip sucks more. So I sold, and I was so thankful I did because it went down to like.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
it's 2 cents now. But so boom, there. I also had money in another blue chip crypto that was like super safe, top 10, good, and it was locked for 21 days. That was $150,000 locked into Luna. And so again, dude, it was like, yes, like, do you think the market's unstable? Put your money in blue chip cryptos. Makes sense. But I got kind of shadow punch screwed on that one. Okay. I lost all of that. That went to zero. And so that sucked. And then from there, I just kept trying to learn from these things. I'm like, you know what? In retrospect, it's not like, I mean, obviously now I know I could do it better, but in retrospect, it's not like I made specifically dumb choices. It's just I didn't make really detailed. It's like the level of detail I would have had to go to protect myself was just a lot more. And now I'm willing to go into those details more with stable coins, how they work, Luna, and I dive into documentation even more than I did. Then I took my money from those things and I had them in just normal stables and different things like that. I had put a lot into Bitcoin. And then I've just strived to do more and more research to really understand things. And I ended up transitioning most of it into Ethereum. And so, and that's currently where it is. But anyway, whole point being, I did protect my wealth substantially. I did make smart choices. They were just also dumb choices. I don't know how to explain that. It's like, what's a smart choice? You know, wear a seatbelt is a smart choice, right? It's just, my car slipped on black ice and went off a bridge or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I was making a dumb choice putting it in stables. I just chose a dumb stable. Even though at the time, nobody thought of it as a dumb stable. They thought of it as a blue chip, great stable. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I can echo a lot of that. I also, went through the last bull market and bear market. So I had lots of baked in rules and ways to think about this one that I did very successfully enact and protect capital and stuff. But even still, it's like my portfolio is down like 70% from its all-time high. But from the amount of money I've actually put in, I'm up like 250% still or something, So I have done things that are successful and maintained, but also I'm still fighting, it's the current of crypto. It's just this space where it's one of the few places on the planet where you can take $1,000 and turn it to 1 million or something. But it's also one of the few places where you can then the very next day watch your million turn into 100,000 or worse. And the tides change so quickly in this space that really, if you're kind of a set it and forget it investor, it's probably not for you unless you only buy Bitcoin, only Ethereum, and you have extremely long, timelines. Which is why I've kind of reinforced, last bear market, I was like, I want to buy lots of Bitcoin. And this one is, again, it's like, it's a fundamental thing for me. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's Ethereum for you, but I think there is still something to be said about that foundational layer and really sticking to that before you layer on like crazy risk. Cause you're going to get burned.
well, I think it's seasons. So like right now, the season is low risk.
Mm.
But people are going to miss out. See, everyone always misses out. So I feel like I did transition to low risk. I could have done it perfect and I didn't, but I feel like I did it, like close enough that I was pretty happy about that. If I could do that again next time, I'd be happy. So I feel like, but people took too much time to do that. And then they finally get to low risk. And then the problem is when it's time to get risk on, when it's time to really start taking risks, people are too hesitant to do that. And so we're about to enter a season where, yes, Bitcoin and ETH will still be great, and they're going to probably go up before the rest of everything else. But you're going to want to, for me, I'm going to start taking risks. I'm going to start, aiming for the next blue chips because, ETH, Bitcoin, they could do 3x, 4x, 5x, whatever. But some of these other ones could do 10, 100x, 1000x, if last bull market's any indication. So I want to manage risk. Don't jump in too early, but then start dripping into that risk. And then once the bull market's in full phase, that's when you can go super risk on, but just making sure you're doing it well. I think I'll probably end my bull market investing a little earlier this time, knowing that I'll miss out on opportunities. But I think that's probably the move to make. But I'll probably play degen season again too. Like I think what I've learned about degen season is you kind of got to look at it and accept it that they're degen projects, and they're probably 99% of them going to fail. But that doesn't mean you can't make money if you just stick to smart rules. Like, hey, yes, go for a degen project, double, triple it, take your money off the table, and then, make smart moves after that. I might try it. I don't know. It feels like other people can't do it well, so maybe I won't make YouTube videos about it, because when you do, people just get all insane because they think it's like the next blue chip crypto. So maybe I'll just do it like personally and not really go in on YouTube about that kind of stuff. But I still think there's a lot of money to be made, even with bubbles and different things like that. If you play them right, you can make life-changing amounts of money. It's just you got to understand what you're playing with, which is like, fire, and you got to do it well.
Yeah, today's top 10 blue chip is potentially 2 years from now maybe in the top 100 still if you're lucky. Yeah, things just, it's kind of crazy how those change. Your two takeaways are two of mine too. It's like well one of them, and then I have a second one, which is one, I think I probably will not go as crazy into, I will probably dip back in the next bull run a little earlier than I did this time. But secondly, I might exercise slightly more conservative profit taking in the next run, because I think I was a little too aggressive with some of my profit targets and I missed them. They just didn't happen.
So crazy story about that with Luna. Okay. That $150,000 started as $760. So I invested $760 into Luna and it turned into $150,000.
That's wild.
But I took profit along the way. I followed my rules. I made about $20,000 of profit that I took off of that. And I made a video on YouTube talking about how stupid I was for taking profit. And this is the height of like my dumbness. I was like, man, I can't believe, like, can you imagine how it was like $400,000 I would have had. I was like, can you imagine what would have happened if I wouldn't have taken profit? Now, it's kind of ragging on myself for taking profit. But then everything happened where I lost the rest of it. So then I was like, man, it doesn't matter. You literally always just stick to the rules. You always take that profit, because if you're not doing that, like even when you think you have this big winner, like you really just don't know. And so, yeah, for sure, I will be sticking to my rules. I did a good job this last time. I'm going to do an even better job, because there's things like Time Wonderland. I did not stick to my rules. I doubled it. Well, I almost doubled it, but I should have taken profit and I didn't. Olympus, I did. Time, I didn't. And so, yeah, there was just some that I could have done better, especially knowing there were degen projects, like just been a little bit quicker on it and not been as ambitious with like, oh, I'll do it only when it 3Xs,
This is the advantage of not giving up. Like the more of these cycles you survive through or thrive through, the better the lessons are and the better your own personal rules are, your own execution gets. I think, unless you're just completely like go with the flow, emotional kind of investor, then in that case, it's like you might not learn anything ever. But I think something you said is interesting, and that is the idea of, do you talk about some of the stuff on the YouTube channel at some point? Some of the higher risk stuff, and I'm kind of on the side of the fence where I'm thinking, no, I probably won't ever talk about some of the degen stuff ever again, because I don't personally believe most people, the vast majority who watch me or something, can execute on those things well, just based on the evidence I saw in this past run. And I don't want to, have people try to do the things, if I can execute on them maybe slightly better than the average person, I don't want to watch them fail at it.
Yeah, my only like thought for it was like, oh, well, I could tell people like, hey, I'm doing this. It's a dumb project. My goal is to get in, double, get out. But then like, dude, what I found is this last bull market to bear market, people get so angry. They don't even think straight. Like, cause I kind of already did do that in my old videos. I was kind of, I was pretty clear. Don't copy me. I was pretty clear about like with strong block. I was like, hey, that's what I said. I'm literally going to double my money and I'm going to get out. That's my goal. But people didn't even care. It's like they spun their own narratives, and it's like anything that they could put a target on, they put a target on, and they started attacking. Titano is a great example of, it was at 6 cents. I told people, you got to sell this thing. It's going to collapse. The math behind the compounding is horrible. They aren't listening to this. And it was the greatest warning ever. Like if people would have just listened to this, they would have made or saved so much money, because it went from 6 cents. The next 2 weeks, it went up to 10 cents. So you could have sold at 10 cents. Anyone could have. They had this 2-week period where they could have done it, but they instead gave into greed. They called what I was saying FUD, like, crypto tribalism. They started attacking me because I was like trying to degrade their like precious investment. And, nobody listened. They lost a lot of money. And so it's like people, it's like they get this sort of madness about them where they don't really think straight. And that's the hard part. So, for me, I am like you, kind of just leaning towards like, yeah, I don't even know if there's a way you can do it. Even if you were like the most like detailed, like very safe, like, hey, let me be really clear. People just don't listen. But it kind of sucks because there is other people that do listen, are really amazing and, benefit from it. There's other people that made like, a small fortune from those same things. But it feels like their voices, especially as things get bad, are the very quiet voices.
Yeah. Yeah. Like 90% of people who say that they are able to be an unemotional, analytical investor with these decisions stuff, they're not. They're completely emotional. That's just how it goes. And everyone loves you as long as you agree with whatever their thing is. But the moment you change your mind, so that's well, it's both hard. It's not fun to deal with all that, but also it's nice because you get to see who the true, fans and stuff are, because some people might go, I don't agree with you, but I also don't hate you. And I think you're entitled to that, version of opinion, and we'll see who's going to be right or whatever. There are reasonable people in the mix. So yeah, it's a tough balance because you want to share certain stuff because, there are those people, but you have to deal with the fallout of all the other ones too at the same time.
Yeah, it was hard for me at the time, but man, now I feel like I don't quite care as much what people think about me.
Mm.
Um, I feel like I benefited from it. I feel like it's made me stronger. It's pushed me to be more knowledgeable and to like be better at what I'm doing. Just because any sort of like hurdle, I want to overcome that and just get better. So I feel like in a lot of ways, it's just forged me stronger, and that's what I get stoked about, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
more resilient. I don't really care as much about what people think because got some crazies that get super angry,
Mhm.
and on top of that, like I was inspired to go like dig deeper and become a better investor and to learn from my mistakes. And so for me, that I don't know, that kind of pumps me up and shows like a bright future, right? If all these cycles I can do that over and over again, man, by the end I'm going to be insane, insanely good trader, and insanely good at investing. And that's my overall goal and hope, is just like get better at the art, get better at what I'm passionate about, and I should reap the reward if I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I want to refine those same things. I want to get better strategies. I want to do all that. And if some people want to come along for the ride, that's cool. But also, I'm happy to share a message that I absolutely do believe in, which, you can also stick to the foundational things in crypto. Like, maybe I'm a crazy person, but I believe you can just invest in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin over the next 20 to 50 years will probably do another 100x. And maybe some people think that's a crazy thing, but I think that's probably going to happen. And I think you can be fine, just set it and forget it. But it's also fun if you want to be on the other end of the things, or where you're going to bet that maybe that doesn't happen. You're going to find the returns elsewhere and try to figure out that entire aspect of things too. That's kind of the fun of it. You can pick your own adventure.
Yeah, I was just doing the math on that. So $1.6 million. That's where you're aiming for.
I think it could be a $10 million asset at some point.
Wow.
But
What makes you think
depends.
that? So it's not a trillion now. What is it? Like 400 billion.
Like 300 something billion today. Yeah.
300 billion. So you times that times 100, that's what? That's 30 trillion. Is that right? Do you think it
hmm
could be up in 30 trillion? Yeah.
I
I guess
think
that's
I
not.
think 10 to 11 trillion is pretty easy. That's the market cap of gold currently, and I believe Bitcoin can eat that. That's $500,000 to $600,000 Bitcoin. Um, I think I'm making a vote that it has a large role as either. Ultimately, my big thesis, and maybe I'm totally dead wrong, and this will never happen. That is going to be a world reserve asset. But I think smaller thesis is that it's at least a world settlement asset, and that future of global economy settled on Bitcoin, and the daily transactions happen on a layer two of Bitcoin, Lightning Network or something like that, or even on a separate chain, and they do it in a harder. I believe Bitcoin is the hardest crypto out there, and maybe I'm a little bit of a crazy drink the Kool-Aid guy with some of that stuff I recognize, but I see as some larger involvement where it could pretty easily eat up at least a $10 trillion market cap, if not wildly higher.
I think 10 trillion is kind of like that's like a price target a lot of people have because of gold.
hmm
And so I think a lot of people in their brains would agree with that. So to think it could get 3 times bigger, maybe. I mean, that to me, 10 trillion is like, I guess, as far as my brain's gone for it, but who knows? Who knows?
Yep. Yeah. And again, it's going to be fun. I'm not making I'm not betting the entire farm on this one thesis. I am betting a pretty big portion of the farm on it, but I'm also making my bets on Ethereum, and then of course a whole smattering of other things that I hope outperform these things that I can then roll into those things, or even, heaven forbid I roll some profits over into things like the S&P 500 or other really, traditionally safe things.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about stocks, so I don't play around there as much. But I think the more important thing is like, hey, maybe 10 trillion, But do we think 100,000? For me, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, 100,000.
Hmm.
Like that's at least for my own personal like aspirations. Like I almost count on that. Not count on it, but like I feel very strongly that that's like in the cards, as well
Hmm.
as for ETH. I feel like $10,000 is really strongly in the cards. And so for both of those, that's really my like short term goals. Is more where I'm operating off of like. And even if they don't hit those, right? Like, do I think that the prices will be higher in the future than they are today? And that's really, at the base level, what I operate off of. The answer is yes. And so if I'm sticking money in today, then I'm fine, even if it goes lower, because I think it's going to be higher in the future than it is today. And so, as long as I'm willing to hold for that long, it'll be a profit, not a loss.
Yeah, I mean, $100,000 in my mind is too easy. I mean, we hit 69,000, where at the time globally we only had like 300 million total crypto users, conservative estimate. So there's 8 billion people on this planet, and only 300 million were actually active in the whole crypto space. So yeah, 100,000, sure, easy. It can be fully retail fueled and still get there. Not to mention if there's any actual more institutional company wide adoption, or government or state, global economy there's all kinds of levels to that. It's like, yeah, $100,000, sure, why not? $10,000 Ethereum, absolutely, why not? It's like I can see that 100%.
I actually, so you might disagree with this, but I actually think Ethereum's going to pass Bitcoin. I'm sure you've heard me say this, but I think because of the fundamentals, we're going to see in by in the next 5 years, we'll see Ethereum pass Bitcoin. I think it's almost inevitable at this point, just because of the headwinds that face Bitcoin versus the headwinds of ETH, and how that dynamic plays out. There's been a lot of really good research by this guy named Hal Press on that, and like exactly how that works. And that's not, I don't pick a side. Like I love Bitcoin, I love Ethereum. That's purely just based on my understanding and like my ability to like grasp behind these core concepts. And to me, the thesis of like how these things works makes sense. And I think that again, it just has less headwinds to work against, and it's going to hit it. But maybe long term, that's not the case. I don't know. Maybe things change, but I think short term, in the next 5 years, I think we'll see Ethereum pass up Bitcoin. You
Yeah,
could play
I don't.
back. You could play back this podcast if it happens.
Yeah, I'm not on board with that though. I think before the next bull run, I will probably have far more Ethereum actual full coins than I do actual Bitcoins. So if that does happen, I'm happy. I'm sitting pretty.
I'd be happy
I'm
either way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. What are the headwinds that you see that Bitcoin has to fight that Ethereum does not?
Miner emissions. So Bitcoin has miners, and
Hmm.
miners have to be paid via block rewards, right?
Hmm.
And so those emissions eventually make their way onto the market, and they're, especially right now, those miners getting liquidated, those are getting put on the market. And so that amounts to sell pressure on Bitcoin. Now imagine Bitcoin is $20,000. Okay, miners are mining. I don't know what it is right now. Three ETH, or sorry, 3 Bitcoin per block or whatever it
A
is,
little over
right?
6. Yep.
6 Bitcoin per block right now. So now you believe in the halving, right? The halving has an effect because the market supply and
Hmm.
demand, right? You reduce the amount of Bitcoin being issued, thus reducing amount of sell pressure on Bitcoin, thus causes the price to go up. Well, in the same scenario, imagine Bitcoin goes from that 20,000 to 60. It just 3x in price, and the miners are still getting paid out that 6 Bitcoin per block. But now that 6 Bitcoin, which could be versus fiat, right? Because you have fiat coming into the system to push the price up. You have Bitcoin coming in via miners to push price down. That fiat, in comparison to the Bitcoin, is now 3x. It has to 3x in buy pressure to offset what's now $60,000 worth of sell pressure from each block versus the 20,000 that previously was sell pressure from each block. So the higher Bitcoin gets up in price, the more pressure from these miners, more sell pressure coming in the market, pushing it down because they're getting the same amount of blocks that they're mining. But it's just now worth way more versus fiat that has to buy up that buy pressure, right? So markets are all just buy and sell pressure. Same thing as the halving, right? Halving steps in, reduces that, and cuts it in half. So that is the headwind that Bitcoin has to face. And that's why we see these cycles with crypto, especially with Bitcoin and ETH previously, is because the higher that Bitcoin gets, the more this sell pressure gets higher and higher until eventually the fiat can't keep up, and then it comes back down to a new low, and it stays kind of there until the halving, where boom, now it's freed up, the pressure's cut in half, and it could go even higher. Well, ETH was ETH was way worse. So, where Bitcoin's emissions were like 1.5, 2% a year. I don't know exactly what it is. ETH was like 3. It was like almost double. So ETH emissions were insane. Okay. There's like way more per block the ETH miners are getting. And then they're putting sell pressure on the market. And the same dynamic. Every time the price goes up, that sell pressure is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But the change that happened after the merge is essentially that got reduced by 99%. And actually, can actually go above 99% to 102%, 103% because of the burns. And so what happened is issuance of new Ethereum, it's like a halving. Halving reduces by 50%. ETH reduced by 99%. And the difference between 50% and 99% is pretty insane mathematically. It's not like just another 40% specifically. Like, it's like your portfolio going down 50% versus 80%. Those numbers in terms of like output are really different. So now ETH doesn't have that same headwind, right? There's no longer that same sell pressure because it's been reduced 99%, and in fact could go over 99% if they burn enough. Which they sat there for like 2 or 3 weeks where it was actually ETH emissions were net negative. So if you were to look right now at ETH emissions, had there been no merge, okay, there would have been, since merge date, 85 days ago, 1 million new ETH in existence. 1,010,705 new ETH. That's insane. Okay, that's a lot of ETH. I don't know, like monetary wise, that's 1,010,705 times, what is it? 1268. That's over $1 billion in sell pressure. Okay. Instead, because of proof of stake, the emissions have been 1,627 ETH. So 1 million versus 1,000. It's like a Bitcoin mega super halving. And so I think not only is that going to eventually that supply and demand dynamic, if Bitcoin's any example, is that going to impact the price of ETH? But I think long term, as Bitcoin has this heavier burden of sell pressure versus Ethereum, which again, during a bull market, like that will go net negative. You will see it actually be, the supply change like negative 5,000 ETH. There's like 5,000 less ETH in existence because it only takes a little bit of gas to really just burn through that. I think that dynamic is what's going to push ETH up. I think actually ETH is going to detether from this cyclical 4-year cycle of the Bitcoin halvings because it doesn't have that like anchor around it of like the sell pressure as it gets bigger. And I actually think, I hope that the entire crypto market is able to detach from that too, which will be better for Bitcoin. It'll be better for everything because no longer is it tied specifically to a cyclical cycle that's based on the supply and demand dynamics of Bitcoin. But now it's tied to more of just an open dynamic of like just supply and demand of people wanting to buy or sell, but no more this like surmounting sell pressure that's coming to existence the higher the price goes. There's more to it than that, but like in general, that's kind of like the idea.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So yeah, all the post-merge and the emissions and stuff, that is what's made me pay more attention to ETH. I previously was not a fan, and I didn't own any. And then all this has happened, and now I'm actually paying attention to it. One of my goals, I'm sure I don't have, I'm sure you will have copious amounts more because you put so much of your money into it, but I'm hoping for at least 1 to 2 validator nodes before the end of this cycle is what I want to grab. But it's funny though, even though I do love those things about it, I inherently believe that proof of work is superior and fairer than proof of stake for a multitude of reasons. And I don't want to get into a big debate here because I think there's very reasonable, rational reasons to see either side of that, honestly. But I view the Bitcoin sell pressure. I recognize it, but I also view it as one of those things that Bitcoin, you could say, is inflationary because it's continuously spitting out new blocks, new Bitcoins. But if you look at that, it's programmatically doing less and less, so eventually it's a negligible amount. Then you could say it's deflationary as well. It will not go negative until 112 years from now when it actually stops producing new Bitcoin. And that actually goes to zero, and it's all transaction fees that pay the miners on the network. But because it is programmatically built in to go to zero one day, it could be considered deflationary. But I'm basically relying on those halvings to decrease that every year, and that the amount of influx will be far more than that sell pressure of what is like, I don't know, I don't remember the last number, it was like 320,000 Bitcoin this year until 2024 when the next halving happens. So I kind of bake in a lot of that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, for me, some of the tough parts for me to truly get on board with the idea of a flippening is the fundamentals, which Bitcoin, has this never can happen again origin story. And conversely, Ethereum ICO sell, the founders take tens of thousands of Ethereum themselves. But also, one before you jump in, the idea that Bitcoin's rules are so baked in and nearly impossible to change, whereas Ethereum's have been proven again and again far more easily able to change. No, cap on tokens. They could change that in the next update, various things like that. So anyways, but please jump in.
So I agree. I think Bitcoin's narrative is extremely powerful. Its foundational story, and I think its strengths honestly lie in its simplicities. You don't have to deal with smart contracts and different things like that. So like inherently without smart contracts, I think that makes it more secure, just by that very nature. But on the other hand, honestly, it could go both ways because the flexibility and the usability of Ethereum also is to its advantage. Yep. And the ability for them to change and update and to improve is also for their advantage. So it could go both ways. I think that I definitely agree that I think the most powerful thing about Bitcoin is the story and narrative that it's built, and that it really, you can unequivocally say that like Bitcoin is tied to no individual. It is tied to no one person. And I think Ethereum, you could point to Vitalik. Like it's not like he puppeteers the entire thing, but he could definitely say something, and they'll be like, hey, we'll implement this. I think all of that's been done in good nature, and I think they've actually done an incredible, really, really good job about building and expanding Ethereum. I don't feel like they've been greedy or like it's some sort of corrupt organization. I actually think they've done a really, really good job, and I think they've done a really good job about continually building out permissionlessness, decentralization over time. It's just a different approach. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I think something to lend, we didn't even talk about this, but you talk about 10 trillion market cap. They count the Bitcoin market cap as if there's 21 million Bitcoin in existence. That's not actually true. Like there's actually significantly, well, in existence, yes, but accessible significantly less in circulation. So much of that got locked early days. So much has been lost. Who know? I don't know what the real amount would be, but a good stake of that has been lost. So 10 trillion market cap, even if it says it on paper, might not actually be a 10 trillion market cap. Yeah. If you're accounting for maybe there's only 10 million Bitcoins in existence. Maybe I've heard numbers as far as as much as half of the supply of Bitcoin has been lost because of these certain things. So. Who knows? Yep. Maybe you're not crazy. Maybe $1.6 million is actually the equivalent of $800,000.
Yeah.
So,
well, either way, we both. I think I see. I mean, lots of things you're saying make lots and lots of sense to me. So I totally get both sides to this, and it's a fun discussion to have. But it sounds like we're both making smart bets with both of these things. So we'll probably both win if either of these scenarios does happen, which is great. But hey, this. Oh, you're gonna say something.
I was going to say, yeah, and I think the important part is, you pick the side that's winning. You know what I mean? Like so many people get like drawn into these communities, and it's so stupid because like I was not an ETH fan until ETH was like, hey, we're shifting all these things, and I was like, now I'm an ETH fan. This is incredible. But I'm also a Bitcoin fan. I'm really a fan of like the mission of crypto, and I'm a fan of like investing and doing better at investing and building wealth and providing more for my family. It's expensive with 5 kids. I want to take them to fun places, and that's really at the core is living my life and doing that. And so, whichever one helps me get there, I'm going to play with the smartest bet that I think it's the smartest one.
Yeah, I love that. And that actually leads me into what I want to kind of end on, which if you could, I would love it if someone's listening to this and, maybe they were really burned by my crypto this year, or maybe they haven't even got into it yet. They're on the fence. They're just unsure. I just love to, if you could speak to them and tell them kind of why you think being exposed to crypto in some capacity is such a rare opportunity.
Okay, people always hate my answers on these things because like they think that I'm just saying something for the sake of saying something, but I genuinely believe it to my core. I think crypto is a massive opportunity because there is such a knowledge gap between the average person and like the experienced crypto user. And if you take the time to learn and actually dive in and spend time growing yourself in the space, you will get this ridiculous unfair advantage like in the space. Like to where you have such a deeper understanding and ability to point to a project and say, that's garbage. I know it's garbage because I understand crypto, and that isn't garbage. And so that increases your odds substantially, especially because the playing field is not level. Not everyone understands these things because not everyone takes the time to understand these things. And so you're a very early pioneer into the space and understanding it, just like being an early pioneer into the internet and what same thing, I believe, with AI and the way it's shaping up right now. Understanding that is crucial if you want to see opportunities before other people see it. And so I think that alone, that knowledge benefit being invested in crypto right now is worth everything to me. Like right now, what I'm accumulating is knowledge in the crypto space because that's your edge. That's always your edge. It's not money. It's not like going out and like saying, oh, because I wasn't born with, connections or rich friends. Like I wasn't born with connections. I lived in low income apartments, like I have built and I've learned. And so I think that's really, really the value there. And then you just, at the end of the day, got to just ask yourself the question, do you genuinely believe that ETH and Bitcoin have hit their all-time highs and they will never go higher? If that's the case, then don't get into crypto, of course. Like, then why would you be in crypto? That's insane. If you don't believe that and you believe that it's going to be substantially higher in the future, then like, what are you worrying about? Why are you fretting? Just make smart choices, keep learning, keep refining your game. I lost a lot of money in 2018 doing crypto. I made dumb decisions, but you know what? A lot of people walked away and just checked out. And I did check out. I was not perfect. I didn't make the best choices, but I didn't stop learning. I might have checked out from like the markets, but I always kept up to date and learning about investing and learning, basics of crypto. And so if you do the same thing, you don't know that an opportunity is going to come in the future. But what's that saying? Like, luck is when opportunity and hard work meet or whatever. That's the example, like you can gauge, like, I think fairly probable that in the future there's going to, this is you saying this. If you believe that fairly probable Bitcoin and ETH are going to hit new all-time highs in the future, then you can increase your luck by putting in the hard work of learning. And then when that opportunity comes, you'll be equipped to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great note to end on. And I think this whole podcast, this was fun. This was a blast chatting with you. And man, so much knowledge and wonderful advice laid out, Jesse. I really appreciate it. One of my favorite things about doing this whole online thing is that I get to meet other people who are into all this nerdy, weird stuff I'm into, and we get to talk about it, and it's a lot of fun. So I appreciate you coming on here and sharing this with everybody. For anybody who is not aware of Jesse, which I can't imagine if you watch me and you don't know about Jesse, but if you are one of those people, I will put all of his links to find and follow him in the description and in the show notes. But otherwise, Jesse, thank you for your time. Thanks for being on the podcast.
It's great being here. Thanks.